In a world where the cries of the vulnerable are too often drowned out by the clamor of political posturing, the United Kingdom stands at a crossroads. A bold new strategy has been unveiled, ostensibly designed to combat the scourge of violence against women and girls, VAWG, a plague that has festered unchecked for far too long. The government has pledged to slash these atrocities by half within a mere decade, a promise dripping with noble intent. Yet, beneath the surface of this grandiose declaration lies a festering wound of hypocrisy, incompetence, and betrayal that demands our immediate attention. Before we dare to applaud this so-called initiative, we must confront a searing question. Where was Yvette Cooper, self-proclaimed champion of women's rights, when the most defenseless among us were abandoned to predators under her own party's watch? If this outrage stirs your soul as it does mine, I implore you, leave your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to this channel now. Your voice is the thunder that can shake the foundations of indifference. By subscribing, you join a movement that refuses to let these injustices fade into the shadows. Hit that button, do it now, and together, we'll demand the truth that those in power so desperately wish to bury. The UK government's commitment to reducing VAWG by 50% within 10 years sounds like a clarion call to justice. An ambitious beacon of hope amid a landscape scarred by misogyny, sexism, and systemic neglect. But let us not be so easily seduced by honeyed words. Is this a genuine vow to protect the innocent, or merely another theatrical performance from a political elite that has long mastered the art of turning a blind eye to the suffering of the powerless? The stakes are staggering, the challenge monumental, and the hypocrisy suffocating. Achieving such a lofty goal requires nothing less than a seismic upheaval in how the corridors of power engage with businesses, civil society, and the very citizens they claim to serve. Yet, as Women's Aid courageously steps forward with its inaugural Public Policy Summit, graciously backed by TSB, to forge collective solutions, one name casts a shadow over this endeavor: Yvette Cooper. Why, we must ask with righteous fury, has Cooper, a woman who cloaks herself in the mantle of feminism, remained deafeningly silent while horrors unfolded under Labour-controlled councils? Where was her voice when young, vulnerable girls were groomed, abused, and exploited in the very communities her party governed? How dare she now stride onto the stage, basking in the spotlight of this new initiative, when the rot she failed to uproot still poisons her political backyard? These are not mere questions. They are indictments of a failure so profound it shakes the very foundations of trust in our leaders. The government's pledge to halve VAWG within a decade is a tantalizing vision, one that could, if genuine, rewrite the future for countless women and girls. But let us peel back the veneer of optimism and confront the grim reality. The National Audit Office's January report lays bare a damning truth. Since 2021, governmental efforts have utterly failed to improve outcomes for victims or bolster the safety of women and girls. Not a single step forward, only stagnation, excuses, and a shameful lack of accountability. Worse still, there remains no unified definition of VAWG across government and policing, an absurdity that exposes the chaos at the heart of this supposed crusade. How can a nation hope to slay a monster it cannot even name? And yet, the silence of Yvette Cooper looms larger than ever. Where was she when evidence piled high of systematic abuse in Labour-run towns, Rochdale, Telford, and beyond, where predators prowled with impunity? Why did she not wield her influence to demand justice for the countless girls betrayed by those entrusted with their care? Her inaction is not merely a lapse. It is a betrayal so grotesque it stains the very soul of her party. Experts argue that meaningful progress hinges on forging stronger ties between civil servants, the VAWG sector, businesses, media, and academia. Alliances that could breathe life into fresh perspectives and solutions. But what hope is there when those at the helm, like Cooper, selectively choose when to care? The stench of hypocrisy grows fouler still when we consider the criminal justice system's gaping wounds. A chilling data gap persists. We know shockingly little about how many domestic abuse perpetrators have faced conviction. This ignorance came into horrifying focus during the government's early release scheme, a desperate bid to ease prison overcrowding. Certain prisoners, including those convicted of common assault, were freed after serving just 40% of their sentences. Women's Aid uncovered a nightmarish truth. Some of these men, with histories of domestic terror, were sent back to the homes of unsuspecting partners, reigniting cycles of trauma and straining already overstretched support services. The public recoiled in horror, yet the question remains: what of the predators who thrived under Labour's watch, shielded by a culture of denial? Why has Cooper not led a relentless charge against these monsters, whose crimes she could have exposed? Amid this morass of failure, glimmers of hope emerge. Proposals that could, if wielded with courage, spark the urgent cultural shift we so desperately need. Emphasis has been placed on molding young men into champions of respect, dismantling the toxic male role models that poison society. Education, we are told, is the battlefield where this war must be waged. where positive alternatives can supplant the shadows of misogyny. Teachers, armed with specialist training, could become sentinels, spotting the signs of abuse and responding with precision and compassion. But let us not delude ourselves. Has the education system not already failed the girls abandoned to predators under Labour's gaze? Where were the reforms to prevent another Rochdale, another Telford? National disgraces that scream of systemic rot. Economic abuse, too, has been unmasked as a sinister weapon, chaining survivors to their tormentors. Urgent reforms are needed to sever these shackles, granting survivors the financial independence to flee. The Home Office Flexible Fund, managed by Women's Aid, and TSB's Flee Fund stand as vital lifelines, offering escape routes to those trapped in hell. The Employment Rights Bill, now before Parliament, could herald a revolution, imposing obligations on employers to provide paid domestic abuse leave and safeguard victims from workplace peril. But what of the survivors who never tasted justice, silenced in Labour-run towns where whistleblowers were crushed? Their ghosts haunt every promise of reform. Women's Aid Public Policy Summit has dared to propose a new blueprint, a model for collaboration between the civil service, businesses, and civil society. The government's forthcoming Civil Society Covenant promises a golden era of partnership, bridging the chasm between policy and action. Yet why should we trust these alliances when the old ones crumbled under the weight of apathy? For national policy to ignite real change, it must amplify the voices of women on the front lines, especially those from marginalized communities. But how can we believe in these discussions when figures like Cooper stayed mute when it mattered most? The Employment Rights Bill is no mere legislation. It is a lifeline, a chance to shield survivors from the relentless storm of domestic abuse. This scourge invades every corner of a victim's life, its perpetrators wielding any tool, harassment, control, punishment, to tighten their grip. As a survivor myself, I stand resolute, having battled for years to rewrite the laws that protect survivors at work. Shortly after the general election, the all-party parliamentary group on domestic abuse and violence, which I chair, convened to plot a path forward. The bill offers a historic opportunity to enshrine paid leave, ban discrimination, and impose a duty of care on employers, measures already embraced by nations worldwide and demanded by UK domestic abuse advocates and trade unions. Workplaces are battlegrounds where survivors fight for safety. In every office, factory, and shop, there are employees scarred by domestic abuse, many too terrified to speak. A 2024 trade union equality audit revealed a scandalous truth. Only 36% of representatives reported a domestic abuse policy at their workplace. This is an outrage that demands immediate action. Employers must be compelled to craft policies, conduct risk assessments, and shield workers from abusive partners lurking at the gates or infiltrating through IT systems. Survivors need time to flee, to find refuge, to heal, without the spectre of job loss or financial ruin. Stable employment is their ladder to freedom, yet abusers often sabotage education, training, and opportunity, chaining victims to poverty. Discrimination, too, stalks survivors, direct and indirect, punishing them for circumstances beyond their control. No one should lose their livelihood because abuse has left them late, shaken, or broken. Research reveals a staggering 56% of abused women arrive late to work at least 5 times a month, a silent epidemic employers must confront. The Employment Rights Bill can forge a future where survivors reclaim dignity, pride, and joy, a future we must seize with both hands. If the government truly seeks to uproot VAWG, it must wield the weapon of funding with unwavering resolve. No initiative, no partnership, no summit can succeed without resources to match the rhetoric. But money alone cannot erase the shame of past inaction. It cannot resurrect the girls left defenseless, their pleas unheard, their lives shattered under Labour's watch. If Yvette Cooper dares to speak on violence against women, she must first reckon with the silence that enabled it, a silence that echoes louder than any policy pledge. The magnitude of this crisis is overwhelming, the hypocrisy unbearable, the betrayal unforgivable. The UK stands on the precipice of change, but only if we demand accountability from those who failed us. Subscribe now, share your outrage, and let us rise as one to ensure that no girl, no woman, is ever abandoned again.